What is up, football fans, Broncos fans? Back here again to do another video. Draft week is upon us. Finally, we are here Thursday night. It all goes down, and it's obviously a big week and a significant week for all 32 NFL franchises, but specifically the Broncos, because we do hold the 5th overall pick, our highest selection since 2011, when of course we had the 2nd overall selection and took Von Miller, hit a grand slam there. Hopefully we can replicate that on Thursday night in the first round. And I just wanted to make a video and pretty much just give my final predictions for what the Broncos will do in the NFL draft come Thursday night in the first round with that 5th overall pick. And honestly, I think there's a great chance we trade out of that 5th overall pick, and there's a big part of me and my co-host Brian, we talked about this on Opinionated, which is a podcast I started with my friend Brian, and we have 2 episodes so far. Please check those out. A lot of you have already. I really do appreciate that, but if you haven't, I'll put a link below to our 2nd episode where we covered the draft extensively for over 35-40 minutes. And we talked about how we would actually really prefer the Broncos trading out of 5 and maybe trading back with a team like the Buffalo Bills and getting potentially 2 first-round picks in this year's draft, maybe even an additional 3rd first-round pick, because Buffalo seems to be desperate to move up. Even a team like Arizona could move up for a quarterback, New England. There's a plethora of options, it seems, for the Broncos to look back and trade out of this pick, and I would love to see that, given that I really think this is kind of a deep draft. And we're a team, I think we have multiple needs and a various amount of needs, so getting multiple first-round picks I think would do a lot for us. But in this video, I'm kind of just going to stick with, again, making a final prediction for what the Broncos will do if they stay, and assuming they stay at that 5th overall pick. And I just want to touch on 3 players specifically in this video that I think the Broncos will target and will be interested in with that 5th overall pick, again, assuming and if they stay in that spot come Thursday night. So this, I will say, I've said it all along, if by some way Saquon Barkley falls to number 5, and the reason I didn't include him as one of my 3 players here in this video is because I do not think he will be there at selection number 5. I think he's probably going number 2 to the Giants, or honestly number 4 to Cleveland. So I don't see him falling to 5, but by some chance, I know there is a chance, but and say he does fall to number 5 and he falls in our lap, I think that is the probably ideal scenario for the Broncos, at least for me personally, and I think for them. I think he's by far the best player in this draft. I know people have that whole philosophy of not drafting a running back high, especially in the top 5, but I think he is that kind of talent. And there's a lot been made about him not being a 3-down running back or being more of a scat back and a change of pace back in the vein of Reggie Bush or Christian McCaffrey, and I think both those players are great, and I think that is a fair comparison in a lot of ways. He shares similar speed and that similar home run ability as those guys. He's a great receiver as well, but the difference is that Saquon Barkley is 30 pounds heavier than both those gentlemen and players, and he's honestly faster, I believe, than Christian McCaffrey. Again, given 30 pounds more as well. So he's a different kind of athlete than both those guys. I think he's a more well-rounded back than both those guys. And the notion he can't run between the tackles, I think, is extremely overblown. I think he is a transcendent talent. And given the fact that we just released C.J. Anderson, I don't know. It seems like a match made in heaven. But again, I doubt he's there. But if for some reason he falls to number 5, I think John Elway and the Broncos got to make that call and draft Saquon Barkley. But I did include him in this video because, again, these are 3 players that I'm thinking the Broncos are actually really interested in, that I think have a good shot to be there at number 5 as well. And again, that I think this is more realistic expectations for 3 guys that the Broncos really could target at number 5 rather than who I'd like to see them take. But I did just want to mention that quickly. Saquon Barkley, I think, is probably the preferred target for definitely me, and I think for the Broncos, and probably a lot of Broncos fans if he falls, but there's probably a good chance he doesn't fall. And there's going to be several other players that I think the Broncos are interested in that I'm not going to mention here in this video at number 5, that if they're there, definitely the Broncos could take as well. But again, I just wanted to narrow this down for time's sake and just to be real specific and really dial into some final predictions here and focus on 3 players. So getting that out of the way, the first player I'm going to talk about that I think the Broncos will definitely consider at number 5, I definitely think he'll be there as well, gained a lot of traction, it seems, within the past month or so in terms of being linked to the Broncos at number 5 as we've neared April 26th in the 2018 NFL Draft, and that's Denzel Ward, defensive back junior out of Ohio State. I wouldn't really mind this pick. I don't know if I'd be thrilled with it, but I think Denzel Ward would fit right in with the Broncos. I think he'd be a great fit next to Chris Harris and Bradley Roby. You're talking about a guy that is 5'11", 183 pounds, special athlete for sure. Blew up the NFL Combine. I mean, ran a 4.32 40. Has elite speed. 16 reps at 225 on the bench, which I think is pretty impressive given his kind of frame and build at only 183 pounds, 16 reps at 225, pretty impressive strength. 39-inch vertical jump, had an 11-foot 3-inch broad jump, again kind of showing off that athleticism, explosiveness. Again, you're talking about a guy that is a special athlete, elite athlete. And ironically, I've seen a lot of breakdowns out there, read a lot of breakdowns on various NFL sites and scouting sites. A lot of analysts are comparing him to Chris Harris Jr., so that'd be ironic that the Broncos could have a potential chance to pair him up with Chris Harris Jr. And again, also Bradley Roby, who is an Ohio State alum as well. So could be kind of some weird coincidence there, maybe a sign that Denzel Ward should be a Denver Bronco. But again, I like this kid. I just don't know if I'd be thrilled with taking him at number 5. I think he is an elite corner, though. He's special. I think he's definitely the best corner in this class and the best defensive back overall probably in this class. Allowed just 32% completions over his last 2 seasons at Ohio State for the Buckeyes. Again, showing his ability as a lockdown corner. He's got great footwork. His back pedal is very smooth. You're talking about a guy that had 24 pass deflections in 3 seasons at Ohio State, 15 of which came last year during his junior season, where he really was the featured corner, number 1 corner for them. And he had 2 interceptions in 3 seasons at Ohio State, both of which came last year, again, when he was the primary number 1 corner. But still, 2 interceptions in 3 seasons, that kind of makes you question his ball skills. But I do think this is a guy that is a ball hawk and has that ability, but a lot of teams didn't throw to him because, again, he's great at mirroring his receiver and mirroring the guy he's covering, especially in deep coverage. This is a guy that I think if you draft, you're primarily going to use him against really speedy wide receivers, smaller wide receivers, guys like Deshaun Jackson, so to say, guys like Odell Beckham, more guys in that vein, rather than putting him up against guys like Julio Jones and Dez Bryant, Demaryius Thompson, those bigger physical wide receivers. I think he's more of a guy that is got that elite speed, again, 4.32, 40-yard dash, has that elite downfield speed where he can kind of protect the back end of your defense and the back end of your coverage, and I think that's what he primarily is going to be used as. And again, he's a lockdown corner. He's got great footwork, 24 pass deflections in 3 seasons, showing his ability to kind of run the route for the wide receiver. But the lack of elite size for a true number 1 corner definitely worries me. Again, 5'11" is not terrible, but only 183 pounds. He definitely could struggle against bigger wide receivers. He has in the past at the collegiate level there at Ohio State. And I just really have the question, is he a true number 1 corner? And if that's the case, do you really want to take him at number 5? I think he definitely can be. I think he has the athleticism to be, even though only 2 interceptions in 3 seasons at Ohio State, I think he has the ball skills to be. He definitely has the footwork to be. But the physicality at times, I really question. I think he, hitting the weight room, maybe gaining an extra 10 pounds, I think would be huge for him going forward. But again, I think, at number 5, definitely a guy we're going to consider. Definitely I think will be there as well. I think he's in play for sure at number 4 with Cleveland. They definitely can use a corner. But if he falls, there, that's the only team I think really would consider him at number 4. I think we're going to be the first team that has a chance to get him. So Denzel Ward, defensive back out of Ohio State at number 5, definitely will be in heavily consideration, I think, for the Broncos. And again, pairing him up with Chris Harris, pairing him up with Bradley Roby. Got 2 great guys to learn from. Again, kind of smaller corners as well, but both are very physical and known for their ability to tackle in the run game and their ability in press coverage. Again, he can improve in those aspects. Again, maybe add an additional 5, 10, 15 pounds, get a little stronger as well. Already, again, put 16 reps up on the bench press at 225. Already has good strength, so if you can add to that, I think it's only going to help him, again, be eventually a true number 1 corner. But with that void that Aqib Talib is kind of left behind, to add Denzel Ward in the mix, Again, a guy that will start day one or can contribute day one. Him, Chris Harrison, Bradley Roby kind of don't skip a beat, and that trio could be really special. The second player I'm going to talk about is Quentin Nelson, guard out of Notre Dame, senior. I think he definitely will be in play for the Broncos at number 5. I've been banging the table for him for a while. I know a lot of people have. I think he's definitely the second best player in this draft. My co-host Brian, again on the podcast we do Opinionated, said he believes Quentin Nelson is the safest pick in this draft, and I definitely think he could be right. But I think behind Saquon Barkley, the number 2 prospect in this draft is Quentin Nelson. I think this guy has all-pro potential, should be a starter day one, and should be a starter, granted, health and all things like that considered off the field, everything goes well, should be a guy that, starts for you for the next 10 to 15 years. So I'm a huge fan of Quentin Nelson, 6'5", 325 pounds. I mean, just a hulk of a man, and a hulk of a offensive lineman and offensive guard. And again, a guy that I definitely think is got to be on the Broncos short list at number 5, especially if we stay there. I think really the only team we got to worry about taking him in front of us is the Giants at number 2. I've said for a while, in the little mock draft I did on Opinionated, our first episode, I had Quentin Nelson going number 2 to the Giants, but the closer we get to the draft, I don't know how realistic that is, but that really is the only team I think that could take him in front of us. Again, maybe the Browns consider him at number 4, maybe the Jets consider him, but I don't think the Jets would trade up the way they did for a offensive guard. I think they definitely did that for a quarterback. So I definitely think we'll probably be the first team to have a shot at taking Quentin Nelson. And again, this is a guy I don't think he can go wrong. He's a very safe pick. And should start right away, has the potential to be an all-pro guard. He really solidifies your offensive line, not only immediately, but for the next decade, hopefully, again, health and all things considered. And you look at adding Quentin Nelson, what that does for the Broncos offensive line specifically, you now would have an offensive line. Your right side, you brought in Jared Veld here in that trade from Arizona. He's now your starting right tackle. You got Ronald Leary, who hopefully will be healthy this year, starting at right guard. Matt Paradis, who's been as consistent as any center or offensive lineman, for that matter, in the NFL the past 2 seasons, especially for our group, starting at center for us. Then you bring in Quentin Nelson, top 5 pick, and what he can do at left guard, and then Garrett Bowles, your first-round pick from last year at left tackle. That's a lot of talent, a lot of meanness, toughness, and nastiness across your offensive line now, and that could be a top 5 offensive line going into the NFL next year. Again, if everything works, those guys can get a chemistry going, and if all those guys can stay healthy, that could be huge for us. So this is a guy that, again, I think could be a really safe pick. Definitely, I know Case Keenum would be happy to have. Our offense would be happy to have. Definitely our running backs now. And I'd love to bring in Quentin Nelson. You're talking about a guy that's tough, physical, nasty. He fits in with that new theme of your offensive line with what we did and bringing Garrett Bowles and bringing in Ronald Leary in free agency last year and trying to be more tough and physical across the offensive front. He fits in with continuing that theme. This is a guy that finishes blocks off. He has great raw power, again, at his size, 6'5", 325 pounds. Put up 225, 35 times at the combine on the bench press, which kind of shows that power. He's a mauler inside, again, with his power and size. He's got great hands, quick to get his hands on his defender, lock on his defender, and his grip strength is some of the best, I think, people have been saying for any offensive lineman prospect coming out in a while. So I think it's a guy, again, all pro guard probably. And the only concerns I really have with him is again, can he stay healthy consistently? And when he gets out in space and blocks into space, this is a guy when he has to pull again and get out in space, could struggle at times. He had a 4.62 20-yard short shuttle time at the NFL Combine. That was 7th of any offensive lineman, so kind of showing that ability and athleticism. Again, it might not be elite, and it might need to improve and not be a strength of his, but for being 325 pounds, pretty solid athlete. I think the only team in front of us that would consider him is probably the Giants, and even then I think that's as we've neared the draft, the chances of that have dipped. So Quentin Nelson could be a Denver Bronco for sure come Thursday night with that 5th overall pick. And again, maybe not the most exciting pick, but I think a great pick and a very safe pick that helps improve your team not only immediately, but for the future. And hopefully you got an all-pro guard for the next decade. And the third and final player I'm going to talk about that I think the Broncos will consider with that 5th overall pick. And this might surprise some of you, but I really believe there's some traction with this. And I do think the Broncos have genuine interest in this player. And that is quarterback Baker Mayfield out of Oklahoma, senior, of course. 6'1", 215 pounds, Heisman Trophy winner from last year, led the Oklahoma Sooners to the Rose Bowl, lost a great game, 55-48, I believe, to the Georgia Bulldogs in the college football playoff. So I had a lot of success, obviously, with the Oklahoma Sooners. And again, I know this will come as a shock to a lot of people because people will be like, no way the Broncos will want Baker Mayfield. And I know there's a lot of people that are not fans of Baker Mayfield. He's a very polarizing figure, maybe the most polarizing figure in this draft. But I think the Broncos have genuine interest in him. And I think John Elway genuinely likes him and believes in him. I don't have any factual evidence of that. John Elway hasn't told me that or anything, but that's just my opinion. And again, kind of seeing some of the reports, we requested him to be on the Senior Bowl roster. We sent the most personnel people to his pro day. There's just kind of little signs and hints, I think, that we really like him and are genuinely interested in him. And I think he's a guy we will maybe not take at number 5, but I think there is a lot better chance of us taking him at number 5 than people think. And honestly, I'd be thrilled. I believe in him. I believe in this whole quarterback class. I think it's a special group. I really do. But I think Baker Mayfield, again, I know people are split on him. A lot of people will call me an idiot for this, and that's fine. But I really believe in him as a franchise quarterback. And I think he'd be a great selection at number 5 for the Broncos. Had a pretty solid combine, ran a 4.40-yard dash. Again, the whole notion that he's Russell Wilson, I don't think he's that athletic, but still respectable athleticism. 29-inch vertical jump, ran a 4.28, 20-yard short shuttle. That was tied for third of any quarterback at the combine. Again, this guy that's more quick than fast. Quicker in short areas. And the production is just absurd with Baker Mayfield at Oklahoma in 3 seasons. I mean, you're talking about a guy, 12,292 passing yards, 119 touchdowns to only 21 interceptions, 69.8% completions. Again, won the Heisman Trophy last season, and also did it rushing-wise with his legs. 893 rushing yards and 18 rushing touchdowns in 3 seasons at Oklahoma. The productions, again, are video game level. And this is a guy that he just loves the game. He loves to win. He loves to compete. You have the off-the-field issues in the past, but I think a lot of those are overblown. Again, you have you have even the on-the-field antics, most famously with the game against Kansas. But again, he was provoked, and I think you got to tone that down a little bit. But ultimately, I like what he did. He tried to be respectful. They didn't shake his hand. So, he retaliated and reacted and, okay, check this out, come stop me. And he proceeded to light Kansas up. Again, maybe went about it not in the most mature way, and you don't want to see that from your franchise quarterback. But again, I like overall the competitiveness, and I think so does John Elway. You just got to know how to tone that down a little bit. And, there's a lot of comparisons. He's been compared to a lot of quarterbacks. I've seen most, frequently, honestly, Johnny Manziel, which I don't think he's, regardless of the size or the fact they won the Heisman or the off-the-field, whatever it is, I don't think they're similar, really. I think personally for me, I think he's more Fran Tarkenton and Drew Brees. He's a combo of those two guys than he is Johnny Manziel or Russell Wilson. I just don't think he's as athletic as Russell Wilson. I think he can make plays. I think he has a similar demeanor as Russell Wilson in ways, but I think he's better in almost every way than Johnny Manziel. And honestly, I don't think he has maybe the arm talent as well as Russell Wilson. So for me, he's more Fran Tarkenton and Drew Brees. He's somewhere in there. And this is a guy, he is, I think, hands down the most accurate quarterback in this draft class. He's got phenomenal touch and placement on his throws. Again, he's not the best athlete. I think his athleticism is kind of overblown by some people. But he is a guy that is mobile, definitely mobile enough to keep a play alive. He excels when the play breaks down. Again, this guy that will make video game throws on the run and can make some throws on the run that will have coaches cringing, then at times just being like, what the hell? Like that was amazing. And is a guy that really, I think his decision making under chaos is actually pretty phenomenal. So I think, again, maybe not the athlete as Russell Wilson, but mobile enough, and again, more quick than fast for where can keep a play alive when he's rushed, the pocket breaks down, when the play breaks down, that's when he excels. And go look any Baker Mayfield highlight up the way he can change kind of the throwing angle as well, sidearm if a defender's in his way to find the throwing lane and open wide receiver. He makes some video game throws on the run and is just a bona fide playmaker. Bottom line, he's electric in the same way that a guy like Lamar Jackson is. Obviously, it's different in ways, but he is a guy that can ignite a team. And I don't think he has an elite arm. I don't think he has a great arm even. He doesn't have the arm talent probably of a Russell Wilson, maybe even Drew Brees, but I think he's on par with a guy like Drew Brees. I think he's got good enough arm. He can make all the throws again, has great placement, great touch. And there's, of course, going to be question about his size, but he is 6'1", pretty much, 215 pounds. I think he's got plenty of size for the position. I think guys like Drew Brees and Russell Wilson primarily, but there's also plenty of other examples have kind of dispelled that myth with quarterbacks, the whole size thing, and I think Baker Mayfield will be another one to add to that list. And again, the off-the-field antics are the biggest question, the character, all that, but I think he's answered those questions. I think he's been mature, open, very aware of those mistakes and has admitted to them. He's not trying to, he's not trying to shy away from them. He messed up and he knows it, and I think he's learned from it. And again, this is a guy that is brash and he is borderline cocky. Some people probably say he's arrogant, and he's going to either rub you the wrong way or you're going to love him. And I tend to be in the latter there. I really love his kid. I love his fire, his competitiveness, his toughness, his leadership. I think it all would be very useful for our team, and I think Elway really likes those intangible things that he has as a franchise quarterback. So the question for me, for the Broncos, comes: do they really want to pay two guys at the quarterback position $18 million next season? I'm not sure they want to do that. And Baker Mayfield, I think, is one of the quarterbacks in this class. He's going to push for a starting job right away. And do you want to bring that dynamic in of that quarterback competition? Because say you take a guy like Josh Allen at number 5, maybe that's a better situation. Even Lamar Jackson, if you trade back, take him. Those are two guys that you could probably sit for 2 years, and it's a little more of a smooth transition. Baker Mayfield's going to come in right away and try to be the franchise guy, and I love that about him, and I would love that. But do the Broncos really want to create that situation with Case Keenum after the things they've said? Honestly, to go from what we've had at quarterback over the past couple years to then have Case Keenum and Baker Mayfield, that's cool with me, man. I have a lot of respect for both those gentlemen, and I think Baker would be a guy, again, could help your team short term, but definitely is a pick that's going to pay off in the long term. And I think, I don't know if John Elway or any team really wants to be the team that regrets passing up Baker Mayfield if he pans out the way I believe he will be, and several and a plethora of other people believe he can develop into a franchise quarterback. So those are the three guys, three prospects, players that I think the Broncos will realistically consider at pick number 5, will heavily consider at number 5, and are on their short list. Again, these aren't necessarily the three guys I want to see them pick at number 5, but I think this is, I try to keep this video more realistic, so to say. And this all comes down to, again, if the Broncos even stay at number 5 and don't trade out. This all is assuming they stay in that slot. But I wanted to kind of do my final concrete predictions if they stay at number 5, who I think they will pick. These are the three guys I believe. So leave me a comment below. Who do you guys think the Broncos will take at pick number 5? Do you agree with me? Do you think it will be Denzel Ward, Quentin Nelson, or Baker Mayfield? Or will it be someone else like a Saquon Barkley? Do you really believe he will fall? Is it Bradley Chubb, Minka Fitzpatrick? Do you think the Broncos ultimately, as your final prediction, they will trade out? Do they stay and do they draft a quarterback that's not Baker Mayfield and maybe get a Josh Allen, get a Sam Darnold, does he fall? Josh Rosen. What do you guys think? I would love to hear your guys' comments. What's your final predictions for what the Broncos will do in the 2018 NFL Draft? It's 2 days away this Thursday night. It's finally here. I love the NFL Draft, and I know it's exciting for all fans of the 32 NFL franchises, but specifically these teams that are picking not only in the top 5 but in that top 10. So looking forward to it, guys. Thanks for watching. Go Broncos. Hoping for a great draft, and I'll see you guys afterwards. Probably with my co-host of Opinionated Brian. We might do some live reaction videos to the picks, and then upload them. We might not do a live stream, but we might record them live and then upload them. So maybe get our reactions there, kind of our raw reactions to the picks. And then, of course, we'll be coming out with episode 3 of Opinionated, recapping the entire draft and what the Broncos did over the course of the entire 7 rounds. So appreciate you guys watching. Again, I'm done rambling. Go Broncos. Can't wait for Thursday night. Hoping John Elway hits another home run like Von Miller with that 5th overall pick, assuming we stay there.